Have you ever wondered what happened to the orcs after Sauron was defeated? These dark figures, who once spread fear throughout Middle-earth, disappeared from history or remain hidden, plotting in the shadows. The answer to this question holds a mystery as deep as the origins of these creatures.
Did the orcs seek redemption, trying to free themselves from their corrupted essence? Or was it impossible for them to escape the evil imposed upon them? In my view, the nature of the orcs, transformed by Malcolm from noble elves, condemned them to a cycle of servitude and darkness. And you, what do you think about the fate of these creatures? Share your opinion in the comments. In this video, we will explore the orcs' trajectory after Sauron's fall, uncovering the secrets of their origin and debating the possibilities of survival or extinction. To truly understand what happened to the orcs after Sauron's fall, it is essential to revisit their origin. Imagine a race born of corruption so profound that it erased any trace of their original essence. Melkor, incapable of creation, usurped Iluvatar's work, distorting the noble elves into something dark and decadent. Thus the orcs emerged, being torn from immortality to live an existence marked by death and destruction. This tragic origin set the orcs on an irreversible path. Stripped of freedom and goodness, they became tools of their dark masters, with no chance of breaking the cycle. However, we cannot ignore the central role they played during the events of the War of the Ring. Scattered across emblematic fortresses like Dol Guldur, the orcs served as the lifeblood of darkness. Dol Guldur, shrouded in mystery and darkness, was not just a fortress. It was a symbol of terror orchestrated by Sauron's servants. From there, the orcs relentlessly threatened Lothlorien and Mirkwood, testing the resilience of the elves with their relentless ferocity. This confrontational relationship defined a crucial period in Middle-earth, marked by the clash between light and shadow. 3 times Dol Guldur sought to breach the legendary defenses of Lothlorien. Each time, the elven forces, guided by wisdom and bravery, stood as an unwieldy barrier against the darkness. Led by commanders whose mastery combined strategy and valor, the elves thwarted the orcs' plans, preserving their homeland's light amidst the shadows. Meanwhile, battles raged elsewhere. Thranduil, king of Mirkwood, showcased why he was considered one of Middle-earth's most esteemed leaders. Leading his armies through the dense and treacherous streets of his kingdom, he faced the orcs with calculated ferocity, always a step ahead of his enemy. His leadership secured critical victories against the creatures of Dol Guldur, protecting his people and his home. Yet, despite the defeats, the orcs of Dol Guldur continued to fight. Determined to end the threat once and for all, Celeborn crossed the Anduin River with his forces, launching the final offensive against the fortress. With Galadriel's support, whose presence and power dismantled Dol Guldur's defenses, the last bastion of terror was finally destroyed. The darkness that thrived there was eradicated, bringing long-awaited relief to Middle-earth's free peoples. Simultaneously, other orc strongholds fell. In Isengard, Saruman had gathered his own legion of orcs in Uruk-hai, but his ambitions were crushed by the combined forces of the Ents and the Riders of Rohan. The destruction of Isengard's hordes was so thorough that no creature survived the battlefield. However, in Moria's death, the story was different. Despite Durin's Bane's fall, a group of orcs persisted, hiding in the underground shadows. For years, the survivors wandered, far from the eyes of men and elves. Only when Durin's descendants returned to the mines, bringing light and hope, was peace restored, and the orcs' dark presence finally extinguished. At this point, the scattered orcs' forces across Middle-earth were nearly extinct. Yet, as we will explore further, small remnants found ways to survive, far from the great battles and the glory of ancient times. What about the orcs of Mordor? Without Sauron's leadership, these creatures completely lost their way. Desperate, many chose dark paths, hiding in caves or self-destruction, unable to endure the absence of the dark power that once guided them. The Age of Men had begun, and for the orcs, the future was uncertain. With Sauron's defeat, many orcs were left adrift, directionless. The loss of their dark dominion left a deep void, and in their despair, some took drastic measures. Without the leadership that once guided them, many ended their own lives, throwing themselves in the chains and succumbing to chaos in a desperate attempt to escape a world that had lost its former order. However, not all accepted this tragic fate. A more determined group chose a different path. leading them to the deepest shadows of Middle-earth. Hiding in caves in forgotten regions, they distanced themselves from men and elves, seeking to survive far from watchful eyes. After all, these survivors had witnessed the fall of great lords like Morgoth, and found ways to endure over centuries. Some believe these remnants may have hidden in the Misty Mountains or other inhospitable territories, attempting to perpetuate their existence. Without Sauron's oppression, an intriguing question arises. Did any of them seek something beyond mere survival? Was there room for redemption in creatures so shaped by evil? Although imagining goodness in the hearts of these beings is difficult, a rare dialogue in The Lord of the Rings offers an intriguing glimpse into their motivations. Two orcs discuss the possibility of finding freedom outside their superiors' control, dreaming of a future where they could live on their own. If we get a chance, you and I split off and set up somewhere, with a few trusty lads, somewhere where there's good loot, nice and handy, and no big bosses. This conversation reveals a desire for freedom, something beyond mere servitude to darkness. But is this a genuine attempt to find a new path, or merely a matter of self-preservation? The complexity of the orcs, often simplified as pure evil, may have nuances we cannot imagine. Tolkien reflects on this duality in one of his letters, describing the orcs as the result of Morgoth's most wicked actions. They were created from sin and bear that corruption into their essence. Yet he also suggests that, being part of the world, even orcs, no matter how dark, share a fragment of the goodness inherent in Eor's creation. While the possibility of redemption for the orcs seems remote, Tolkien invites us to consider that even creatures shaped by evil might carry some trace of light. However, the most likely reality is that these survivors continue their bitter lives, never escaping the hatred that consumed them until the last of them disappeared forever. Throughout Middle-earth's history, long periods of peace emerged. During these intervals, a question arises. Could some orcs, perhaps the shroudest and least violent, have attempted to integrate the world of man? Although Tolkien never provided clear evidence of this, the absence of battles might have opened this possibility. Another interesting detail about the orcs' fate appears in Tolkien's plans for a possible sequel to The Lord of the Rings, titled The New Shadow. In this draft, orcs no longer appear as the main villain. Instead, men take the central role as antagonists, suggesting that Tolkien did not envision a long-term future for the orc race. Thus, with Sauron's disappearance, the survivors likely reorganized into small groups, hiding in caves or mountains. However, their resentment toward men never faded. As humans' realm expanded, these small bands were hunted and eliminated until the orc race became extinct. Now I leave it to you. What do you think truly happened to the orcs after Sauron's fall? Did they find a way to survive, or were they completely exterminated? Share your theories in the comments. We can't wait to hear what you think.